All right. Hello, everybody. For my industry profile, I spoke to Jason Anderson, who is the Director of Programming at the Kingston Canadian Film Festival. He also is a shorts programmer at the Toronto International Film Festival, and he has worked for many years as a film critic and teaches a course on film criticism at the University of Toronto. So I approached Jason because I met him at KCFF. I have been interning there for a couple years now as their youth shorts programmer, and this is where I really became aware of what programming is and became interested in pursuing it as a career. So I thought, you know what, who better to speak to and learn about the field from than from Jason. So yeah, so for his education and professional background, Jason actually started writing about film and pop culture as a teenager. He worked for a radio station and their magazine when he was a teen, and he describes himself as first and foremost being a film critic. This is where his career got started. So he initially attended the University of Calgary and then later transferred to the University of Toronto, where he graduated with a degree in English. And then he would go on to pursue a career as a freelance arts journalist and editor. For a while, he worked for iWeekly, which is a now defunct Toronto newspaper. And then in 2008, he was invited by his friend Elon Mastai to joined KCFF as their director of programming. And he says that Elon initially approached him because he was one of the only film critics he knew that actually enjoyed Canadian cinema. And so he would go on to really pursue programming. He had many friends who were film programmers, including Cameron Bailey, who is now the creative director and co-head of TIFF. And he jokes that he, every 6 months or so, would invite Cameron Bailey out for a drink to kind of discuss joining the TIFF team. And this eventually happened when TIFF expanded their shorts program in 2014 and asked him to join the team in 2015. So he started working for TIFF as well. So what is a programmer? I should note that we're specifically talking about a film festival programmer. Programmers can also work in other capacities, but Jason has worked for film festivals. So a festival programmer is responsible for tracking new releases throughout the year, as well as soliciting submissions from filmmakers and then eventually evaluating those submissions and putting together a program for the festival. So which do you consider when you are evaluating a film and putting together a program? So first and foremost, Jason really emphasizes the importance of thinking about your audience. It should not only be about your personal preferences and what you think about a film, but it should also be about, who is your audience? What are they interested in? What type of films are going to appeal to them, and what sort of festival experience are you trying to provide? Another important thing to take into account is timing. This is especially important for the Kingston Canadian Festival, which takes place in late February, early March. That you want to be screening films that are relatively fresh. So not only did they come out in the past year, but also they haven't had, a wide release, or they haven't been released online. It should be a relatively new experience for your audience. Additionally, when you're putting together a program, you want to include, a diverse array of films, different genres, different subject matters, as well as considering the types of stories you're telling, considering representation of people and artists and stories that have historically been underrepresented in the media and at festivals as well. So what are some of Jason's industry insights? So one thing he really emphasizes, which I just sort of talked a bit about, is that there's a big push for inclusion and diversity amongst programmers. Not only because they want to meet a quota or be politically correct, but because he says um, telling a diverse range of stories and stories by women and people of color and LGBTQ plus people. These stories that have historically not been given access, not been given a space to be seen at these major festivals. That including these stories is vital to keep the art form, to keep film interesting and vital and important, as well as to keep the interest of audiences, because audiences want to see and experience new stories. Additionally, he notes that festivals are diversifying a bit in the sense that they're no longer showing, traditional studio produced or independently produced films. They're also including more kind of prestige television. For example, Trickster on CBC recently had an event at TIFF, and also streaming services like Netflix, films that are not ever technically going to have a theatrical release. They're going to be released immediately online, but these films are also making their way to festivals, and oftentimes that is the only chance you'll have to see some of these films on the big screen. Additionally, a lot of our conversation obviously revolved around the pandemic. What is it like planning a festival during the pandemic? At this point, KCFF 2020, unfortunately, it was canceled on the first day. As a result, it just so happened to be taking place right when things started getting really bad back in March. Whereas TIFF 2020 had a little more time to prepare, and so they went forward with a festival that was a combination of in-person, drive-in, and online. And going forward, I kind of wanted to know what our film festival is going to look like. And, Jason says that they've had success with online screenings. The shorts program at TIFF was entirely online. And that, they received positive feedback from audiences and from filmmakers. And he also notes that it might be a positive thing in the future to incorporate more virtual screenings, because it enables people who cannot physically attend the festival to, get access to these films and the festival experience. But he also notes that, in-person screenings have a very important place, within festivals and within the Canadian film scene at large. He notes that for a lot of Canadian independent cinema, festivals are their only chance to really have a theatrical screening, and that not only is this such a vital and amazing opportunity for these filmmakers to show their films and for audiences to see these films on the big screen, but that festivals are very important for when these films go to video on demand or streaming releases, that it can, open up more opportunities for them by building up word of mouth around them. And what are his career insights? So his number one kind of career advice for me was that flexibility is key. Essentially, nobody in the industry, or very few people in the industry, are ever going to work in kind of a permanent 9 to 5. He says himself, he's worked freelance or on contract pretty much his whole life. And that's kind of something that you just have to accept, especially as a programmer. Most programmers, work for multiple festivals because their contract is only for part of the year. The work is only for part of the year. And so, they, even experienced programmers like Jason, move between many different festivals and many different gigs. Um, he also notes the importance, especially in this sort of gig economy, of making, but also more importantly, maintaining connections. His both his jobs at KCFF and TIFF were gotten through people he knows, and by not just knowing these people, but by, like you said, taking Cameron Bailey out for a drink, discussing what opportunities there might be, and by pursuing those connections and maintaining them, you know, um, good things may arise from that. I should also note that he notes that his path to working as a programmer is not everybody's path, especially for people who work at TIFF. Oftentimes, they start as volunteers or interns and work their way up. But he notes that, everybody in the industry has their own path, and there is no one right way to go around about things. The most important thing is that you actively seek out new opportunities and that you take advantage of those opportunities when they arise. So yeah, that's it. Big thanks to Jason. This has been super enlightening for me, and I hope it has been for you as well. Thanks so much.